In order to clear up any confusion about the train horn quiet zone in Roseburg, I've put together some information I collected from the web, mostly from the Federal Railroad Administration and from what other cities have done, and I thought that the visuals may help. I don't have any expertise in this area, and I'd like to suggest everyone do their own research. There's a glossary of terms that the government will use in its evaluation, a listing of regulations, and other info on their web pages, including a 44-page document on the effects of transportation noise in general. There are currently over 1,000 train horn quiet zones around the country. Now, currently by law, trains are required to sound the horn before any grade crossings. They use 2 long and 1 short blasts for every crossing, and the horns are around 100 decibels. An important thing to note is that while the train horn quiet zone removes this requirement, they're still required to sound the horn when anyone or anything is on or near the tracks. There are 4 crossings in downtown Roseburg, with 3 of those 1 block apart, which is why the horn seems so long. It was brought up that Portland has had some fatalities with trains recently, and I'd like to make a distinction here that those were high-speed commuter trains and much faster than the Central Oregon and Pacific Freight Line in Roseburg that runs around 25 miles an hour. The most recent incident in November was between an Amtrak train and a man on a scooter, and the one in June was with a Max commuter train and a bicyclist. Max trains can reach 55 miles per hour and Amtrak up to 80 miles per hour in some areas, but I don't know the speed limit at the accident sites. In both cases, it seems that the gates, flashing lights, and bells were working, but the riders went around them or were somehow distracted. Now, the process starts with the Federal Railroad Administration doing an assessment of the current situation and looking at what modifications would be necessary for approval. They want to make sure that no one can go around the existing gates to get through the intersection, so there's typically a requirement for either a 4-quadrant gate, where there are gates over both lanes on each side of the tracks, or some type of non-traversable median strip to keep drivers from going around. This is an example from Redmond in eastern Oregon, and this is a better and newer one from Canby on the north side of Portland. There's also an exception on one-way streets where both gates can be located on the same side of the tracks if all traffic is blocked, such as what you have here at Southeast Oak Avenue and Southeast Washington Avenue. Again, this is not an evaluation, and I cannot predict what the government may require, but from looking at the remaining intersections here in Roseburg, you may have room for some sort of median strip barriers at Southeast Mosier Avenue, Southeast Douglas Avenue, and Northeast Chestnut Street. This intersection has both dual gates on either side of the tracks and median strips, and of course this is Garden Valley Boulevard. Now, some cities start with the downtown crossings and then expand outward, and I did not include North Stewart or Edenbauer because these are more complicated situations and it's less densely populated, but I would suggest finding out what improvements would be required. Of course, sidewalk crossings would all need to be upgraded, and these are a few examples of signage in some areas of Portland and Milwaukee, which is a suburb. They're a little hard to read, but say no train horn and stop. Then in multiple places, they say look both ways. Some of those seem to have gates also. I don't know if they're required now or if they're actually functional. I pulled these images from Google Street View, so I'm not clear on what their purpose is, but they were only on one side of the tracks and not the other. Now, this may be a multi-year project, and funding assistance seems to be drying up from the federal government. The Douglas County Commissioners have a video on their website addressing the fact that while the county used to be supported largely by the timber industry, but that money is now a quarter of what it used to be, and the county is about 2 years from exhausting their reserves and are looking for ways to increase revenue through economic development. The city of Canby on the north side of Portland addressed this on their website, saying train horns can discourage outdoor activity, which in turn can negatively impact the economic vitality of our downtown business community. Now, to be fair, they had about 30 trains per day coming through. But another article from Oregon Public Broadcasting talks about the stalled multi-million-dollar effort in Eugene to implement their quiet zone, which sounds daunting, but they have 10 crossings and are also doing major renovations near the waterfront. That article interviews a woman from Albany, New York, who has an acupuncture business, and that was very excited to move to Eugene, but will now be looking in Salem because of the quiet zone there. I think it would be a good thing for Roseburg, and I do have a petition on change.org titled Roseburg Train Horn Quiet Zone to help show support. And I thank everyone for your time, and I hope this helps.